What's going on, guys? Philip at Trade Genius. A lot to go over. Bitcoin really in uncharted territory for Bitcoin. Hasn't really been through the environment that we're seeing right now. 2020 has just been a crazy, crazy year. So with that being said, we're going to go over what the daily chart looks like. We're also going to take a look at our Delta and our Bitcoin futures gap chart. And I also wanted to go over the VWAPs. We haven't gone over those in a little bit. And if you don't understand what any of this stuff I just said means, just stick with it. I'll explain it as we go. Also, the cycle repeat graph, I wanted to kind of update us as to where we are in comparison to that and what to expect going forward. All right, guys, let's dive into this video.
Trade Genius.
Guys, really quick, we are doing a super special March Madness $2.99. You normally only see that on Black Friday. A lot of opportunity right now with the volatility, like with the binary options, because the VIX is going up and up and up. That makes premiums better, so you get safer plays on things like the S&P 500. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but that's the way it works. So check us out. Bob's got the stocks and ETFs covered. We're doing the crypto and binaries on my side of things, and I think you'll find it very, very interesting. So if you're interested in getting in with us, or if you want to renew, this is a great time to do it. All right, let's dive into the charts. Okay, guys, so Bitcoin. Now, what I'm seeing setting up here on the technicals, now remember when the stochastic RSI pinches, we expect a bounce. We got that. We are actually on swing trades for Bitcoin. The target was 9,200. That was hit today on a Darth Maul candle. And if you don't know what a Darth Maul candle is, this is a Darth Maul candle where it just takes out both sides. And this is actually very bearish because what happens is it comes up, raids the stops here on the top, and then fully reverses and engulfs all this price action. So a little bearish look here on Bitcoin on pretty big 4-hour volume. So with that being said, I'm looking at the 8850 level to hold. Not only is that a VWAP level, volume weighted average price, but it's also an area where we've seen a lot of trading happen, an area of value. And so if we see that level break down, then I think we can see something that we saw similar to this area here. Okay, so remember pinching it, we're looking for a bounce. That's played out. Now what ends up happening is we look for, do the stochastic RSI separate? And if they separate, does the stochastic stay down? Because if the stochastic stays down, we expect to snap back down. And so I think we're looking very similar to this area here where we came up, we bounced, and we could potentially roll over here. Okay. And that's what I'm looking at now. Do these stochastics come up and cross, and we end up with a situation really similar to this area here? Come up, roll over, chop, chop, and then roll back over here. And that's what I'm keying in on here. So, if we do roll over, I'm going to look at some low volume nodes. Now, what that means is a low volume node means there just wasn't a lot of price action in a certain area. So this is the volume profile for you new guys, and this tells us how the volume performed at certain price levels. So when we get these low volume nodes, meaning there wasn't a lot of action at this level, a lot of times what will happen is price revisits that level. So I can see a case for 8,200 or in that area, 8,260 to 8,200. I can see that being visited. Also, too, we have a head and shoulders, and that means you've got this formation. You got a left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder. And this is your neckline, roughly. Okay, so price could probe down to this level, like we said, this 8,200 area. We could see an initial bounce. Now, with that being established, you'd have a neckline there, and so the question becomes: does the head and shoulders, which is normally a bearish formation, does that play out and break that level? Because if it does break that 8,200 level, then you have what would be called the measure move of the head and shoulders. Okay, and then that would be a result of this distance here would then be translated down to this area here. So you'd have this move, and then that would turn into a measured move down toward this area. Okay, and actually a little bit more down to here. So that's something that the bears would be keying in on and basically targeting down to these lows, right? So I know we're into halving, but this is just I'm looking at the price action and the different scenarios that can play out. So if you're very bearish and you think Bitcoin can, you're looking down lower, I think this prior lows here could play out if this doesn't hold, this area here doesn't hold. But I do think that for now, I think this low volume node that we talked about here, this 8200 area, would be a realistic pullback low, and then I think we could expect to see a bounce from there. With that being said, below that level, another big draw, if this level does break, would be a 7680 to 7700 area in here, price bouncing off that level as well. So that's really, it can only go off of what the market is giving us as far as market generated information. And those are the two levels to the downside that I think are realistically in play. So just be aware of that. All right. So also too, the RSI 50, you'll notice, remember we said when it breaks down like this, then the 50 line actually becomes a barrier. So for bulls, you want to see a move that gets us back above that 50 line for more upside. So there's a lot of cross currents. We've got the stock market weighing down on different things that have, Bitcoin's exposed to the stock market through funds like GBTC. So that has a weight on it. This global pandemic is just another new thing that Bitcoin hasn't really been through. On the other side of things, we have the halving that's approaching, which we'll get to on the cycle repeat graph. So I think, potentially there's dips here, but also don't forget that we probably have a decent bull run coming, or a up move, swing up, that we can't discount. If we're looking at the Delta chart, now if you guys aren't familiar with this, we usually cover this every week. And what it does is it basically looks at how the investors are buying the futures on Bitcoin, specifically the XBT futures at the BitMEX exchange. And you'll notice that it's very flat. Okay, so and flat to going down. And so if it's being bought up, that's bullish. We get a blue color and we expect price basically buy the dip mode. And then vice versa. If they aren't buying the futures up, they're selling them, then we expect bearish action and we would want to sell any pops on swing trades. So, we're flip-flopping colors. Things are kind of choppy here. Indecision, there's a lot of cross currents, but I think right now you just have to respect, what the colors are telling us. And right now things are looking a little bearish on a pullback. And again, this low volume node here, 8200, I think is the area. If some of these key levels here, like 8850, start breaking down, I think that could be the end destination for a move down. And then you see something similar to what we saw, potentially a similar move where we come down and we break. Right now it would be breaking this weighted moving average of 65. I don't know if we get this severe of a move down, but something similar where this starts to roll over here, starting with a large candle down, and then we see some follow through down to that 82. Basically this 8250, let's call it, area, 8250, 8220. And then looking at the gap charts, remember last week we said target this 9200 area. There's half gap targets in here, and price really couldn't. That's pretty telling that the 4-hour chart really couldn't get above there. And then now we roll back over. So half gap on the way back down is 8965. Essentially, we've hit that all over the weekend now, and next lower half gap levels to retest down would be 8800. So those are spots where I'll be looking to see what the reactions are like. And whether or not there's enough bullish buying in these levels to keep it from rolling all the way over. If we do roll down below these levels and really start getting past this 8600, I think that's really going to green light a move down to that 8200 area. So I think it's more of a day-by-day thing, and we'll just keep updating this as it goes. On the VWAPs, the yearly VWAP is 8,500, so I don't expect that we'd see a move that slices right through that. So this isn't a very straightforward narrative to get down to 8,200. I don't think it's going to be a quick drop. I think we've got some fairly large levels. The yearly VWAP you have to respect. During the run-up here in January, it cranked right through it and then stopped, pulled back, and we danced on it for a little bit, finally broke through it a little bit. Tested it once from the underside, and then we finally broke back up. So once that move happens there, that's a pretty clear indication that you want to start getting positioned long. This line here is actually the developing VWAP for this year, volume weighted average price. And all that means is this is the average price where all or most of the volume happened at 8,500. So you have, this is for last year, ending 2019. This line is the developing one for this year, 2020. So I look at both of those, both last year's completed VWAP and then the developing one as well. As you can see on the run up, we came up and pulled back to it. So on trends, daily trends, it's actually a decent area to look for a pullback to. Right now we're flat on it. So that just indicates that, we've come back down off of this trend. So this trend is over, obviously, on the daily, and the VWAP is flat. So when we're trending up and the VWAP is going up or trending down, that's where I look for it to act as a point of support or resistance. So anyway, 8,500 yearly VWAP, that would be one level that I would look for a reaction on as well as we pull back. If we look at this chart here, this has just various monthly and quarterly VWAP levels highlighted. Right now, we've come down and we're touching this VWAP level here, which this one is the monthly. So this is the developing monthly VWAP here. And you'll notice that we've come right down to it, okay? So we're looking for, not only is this a technical level, this is also a VWAP level. So no surprise that we've taken a move down and bounced up a little bit here. This is a daily candle. But again, watch that area. If that starts to break back down, then I think we're going to see some acceleration to the downside. Okay, last but not least, cycle repeat. Okay, so this is essentially comparing our last peak that we had, which is actual price in the red line, versus the modeled green price, okay, that we would expect to see based on how Bitcoin cycles between having peaks and troughs. Okay, so basically, the moves down and then the bottoms and then the end of the bottoms are somewhat similar. We saw a deviation in price where actual price started getting extremely bullish like we've never seen out of a bear market. And then as we learned, the Plus token Ponzi in China was just going berserk and gobbling up a lot of supply. And so that Ponzi fell apart, broke, and then price returned to the mean, which got us caught back up to the cycle repeat price, which is this green line. So now if we zoom in a little bit here, you'll notice that we've been meandering over it and under it, and that's to be expected. It's a model price. It's not going to be exact, but we've washed out of that Ponzi overbought condition and then oversold condition and kind of settled in here. And we're also staying bumping along the 200-day moving average. But what's interesting for me is that we're entering this area here on the model toward the end of the month where we would expect to see a price rise. Now that does go hand in hand with what we typically see going into halving. We see a move up and then price should cool off into halving and past halving, consolidate, and then we start to grind higher. As you can see, a sustained rally until we ultimately peak out at the end of this halving cycle. Now, this model is going off of the crazy peaks that we've had on the last two, okay? So that would equate to like a $400,000 peak for Bitcoin at the end of this cycle. That's a lot of money. That's a large market cap that would start getting into the gold market cap. Now, obviously, things can change. As you can see with this world, it's crazy. But I don't know if we're going to see that high of a valuation. I think, 6 figures at the end of this cycle, definitely doable. But really what we're going to want to see is this kind of trajectory start to sustain. Okay, we start to see this, then we have no reason to think that we can't start seeing those 6-figure valuations toward the end of this cycle. So just keep that in mind. Pretty interesting spot for Bitcoin here as far as, getting through this halving cycle and then the building that slow but steady bull run. Okay, past halving, so past May 2020, all right, and then getting into this area of consolidation and then move up. So the back half of this year, I think, is going to be very telling for how this larger price cycle model is playing out. Okay, guys, well, that's it for this video. I think that we just have to be on your toes as far as swing trading it. Long-term hodl, like what we see on this chart here, obviously you want to buy the weakness. But be prepared to see if this pullback gets past this 8850 level and then starts dropping down and maybe targets this low volume node here in the lower 8200s. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I hope that helps. Please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.
Trade Genius.